This is Marvin Jarrett of Millerton near Poughkeepsie, New York. This interview is taking place at the Stratton VA Medical Center in Albany, New York on July 1, 2004 at noon. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 1954 through 1966. The interviewers are Kenneth and June Hunter. What is your full name and when and where were you born?
Marvin W. Jarrett. I was born in 3537, Lincolnton, North Carolina.
And what year were you born?
1937, 5th of March.
And what did you do before you entered the military service?
I finished high school when I was 16 years old, and right after that, I wanted to go into service, so I was underage. My father signed that I was 17, which I wasn't, and I went in basic training in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and 11 weeks of basic training. It was, we slept in two-man pup tents, they call them, and you had to dig trenches around it from one tent to the other so the water would drain if it got, rain. And it was very hot there in Texas, and there was still a lot of prejudice in the service. Out of my flight, we had 75 men in the flight. There was only 2 blacks in the whole outfit. That was myself and another man from Tennessee. And most of the guys in the flight were from the South, like Carolinas, Texas. We had 6 or 7 guys from New York and New Jersey, and we all used to stick together, the guys from New York and New Jersey, because back then, I guess the Southern guys still had the thought of the old South, and they didn't like so-called Yankees. So the 2 black guys and the Yankees, we stuck together, so that's the way it was down there. And I used to make jokes about, oh, look at me, that boy, he worked so hard, the palm of his hands turned white. I thought nothing of it, but remarks like that, they had just integrated, and they didn't want to integrate most of the Southerners, so they had no other choice, so being the same outfit that I was in.
What were meals like and clothing and what have you, and opportunities to go on pass into the community?
Well, the 11 weeks of basic training, you couldn't go anywhere, just on the post, and I think you got something like we used to call 21, flying 21 for shaving and toilet articles and things like that. You just go to the PX, other than that, you just have stick around the base until you graduated.
What kinds of things did you do in the basic training, the special training?
Well, I went through the gas and rifle fire. It's almost like the infantry training, like crawling under the barbed wire and target practice and climbing like ladders and things like that, to going over creeks, with ropes and basic stuff like that. They'd put you in a room and wouldn't let you put on the gas mask until they told you to. And other than that, it was just like combat. If you got in that situation, they were trained to.
How were you treated by the drill instructors?
Well, they were okay, but most of them were gung ho, you know, and they try to, you know, they would probably turn something wasn't right, they would just turn their head, you know, because I got into a fight with a fellow there. He called me names, so they said, all right, you go up into the room and you guys fight it out. So anyway, the guy's name was Frazier. He was from Tennessee, and we became best friends after that. He when the outfit disbanded, he gave me a big hug, and he was headed to see me go, he said. You know.
Why did you choose the Air Force?
Well, my uncle was a pilot, and I used to ride in, at that time, JC3, I think, Piper Cub he had. And I used to fly all over, and plus he had 2 motorcycles. They had hogs, we call them, the Harley Davidsons, big heavy motorcycles, and I used to ride on there with him. And I just thought I'd like to be in the Air Force, because I just really, you know, riding the plane all the time with him, and over the country and everywhere. You know, he'd fly on weekends. So I figured I'd want to try that. You know.
So when your basic training was over, then where did you go and what did you do?
I went to 750th ACWRON in Bull Run, California. It was a high-frequency radar site for atomic testing at Groom Lake. And I guess they renamed it now Area 51. But it was a Groom Lake, and it was next. The radar site in Bull Run was maybe 150 miles from Edwards Air Force Base. Now it was, at that time, it was called Muroc Dry Lake, and we were about 30 miles for the Naval Weapons Station, China Lake, and maybe 50 miles from the Nellis test site. And the radar site was to pick up the nuclear explosions and monitor it back to Nellis, what was happening, and then the cloud drifts and all that. And you couldn't go out after a nuclear test. You couldn't go outside because of the fallout, and they would blow the siren when it was clear, all clear, for you to go outside. And to me, the fallout was just like rain falling, you know, and you couldn't go out. And then in the morning, they would send 2 guys out with Geiger counters. They had short pants on, short shirts, sleeve shirts, and a regular type, jungle type hat, and they would go out for most part of the day. And I said, well, what are they, I asked security, what are they going out for? He said, they're going out to check the radioactivity. And they'd come back at 12 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure those guys were pretty, well, anybody on the place was exposed to radioactivity, radiation ionization, because I think that's what happened to me. I have no hair, eyebrows, and skin problem. And I was in that area for, it was 15 tests in that area from 17th of March to August the 4th. 15 nuclear test.
What year was this? Or year?
1955, and it was from I think they had a moratorium on getting all the testing done because of the Cold War, the Russians and all that. So I think it was one of the most the explosions were worse than in Hiroshima.
Now, did you have any kind of protective clothing?
No hazmat suits and any of that stuff. And we used to have like the magnetrons would come in that's radioactive. They were in like lead coffins. We had no protective clothing, and they called from Nellis to test the area, and that they wanted the serial number off a piece of equipment, and the warrant officer said, "We're not equipped. We can't get you that serial. We can't get the serial number off us." So one fellow, he jumped out and he gave him. He's from Alabama. He got the serial number off, but that stuff, yeah, I guess it goes through you just like your flash bulb, radioactivity. And so the warrant officer, his name was Ryan, he was all upset. He said, "They don't give a damn about us out here. They care more about the piece of equipment because they don't know where this place is going to go." The buildings had asbestos shingles on them, and it was only about 3 or 4 buildings, and they about 25 men apiece in them, and there was about 8 of us on the radar site up top. At that time they called them scope dopes, radar observers, and I was a supply helper for the parts and all that. And so we used to, every time they donated bomb there, we seen it. It flashed. You'd see the orange flash, the cloud, and it would drift towards you.
Did you have protective glasses?
Nothing. We didn't have anything. That's why when I got out of service, they used to check, and you're supposed to have something like post-scapular cataracts. But they sent me to New York 5 times. I had problems with my eyes, and the VA doctor said, "Oh, we don't see anything." Same thing happened here. They claimed they don't see anything. And then they said, "Oh, your retina's coming detached." But not now. They said they probably, when they do, just come in the emergency room. And I said, "Well, I'll probably be blind, by then, No, we had no, at that time in the 50s, you had no kind of protective, anything that like the magnetrons and the microwave equipment used to come in lead boxes. And so.
Did you feel scared at that time that something would happen to you?
Oh, yeah, well, at that time, I got real sick. They called from Iraq, which is Edwards, and said, if any of the men get sick out there, rush them right over to Edwards. And so I was sick for 3 months, throwing up, and we had no doctors. We had on that it was just a little radar site, maybe about 50 men, and we had 3 stripers. Well, the Marine was calling him. He was a medic, and he finally told the motor pool to get a driver ready because this guy's sick. I had lost my equilibrium. I was falling down, and they handed the driver the records. My medical record says, "Don't let him see him." And they sent me to Edwards, and the doctor at Edwards, they took blood samples, and they said his hemoglobin is low. And so they got all shook up and said, "Where is he from?" They say, "Oh, he's from out there." And one of the doctors said, "Oh, it's better than them than us." So they gave me a big shot or whatever. It might be the B12 I take now, but it was red. And after they completed the test on the 4th of August, everybody had orders to ship out. They shipped from different places.
Now, at the testings, after that, did no decontamination process?
Oh, no decontamination process, nothing.
And did you just wore the same clothes going from there to the barracks or
yeah,
whatever?
Field jacket, yeah. Well, see, the barracks were down the hill, say 3 of them, and we had a little mess hall, about big as this room, and we didn't have nothing but the regular fatigues.
And did they mingle you in with other people who weren't in the tests when, say, at the barracks and at
Well,
the mess hall?
everybody was exposed to it, even the guys down below the hill. We were on there, we could see good vision because the radar site was on a place called, let me see what's the name, Fremont Peak, elevation about 5,000 feet. We were up high, but we still had to come down to the mess hall and the barracks. But everybody was, they had the windows on the barracks, had plastic and duct tape around them. So I asked them, what's duct tape around? They said, oh, so the sand won't blow in from the desert. But I think it was mostly for the fallout.
So do you feel that at that time very few of you realized the seriousness of this?
I did
You were
it.
innocent, or?
I did it. I did because I had an argument with her. They wanted everybody down at the mess hall in case they got away from them. In case, they said everybody meet in the mess halls when they do this test. In other words, if all of us was going to die, we'd be all in there, no. But I had an argument. I went down the bottom of the hill from the radar site, and I just happened, I wasn't thinking, and the siren went off. I was supposed to be inside, and I looked up, and there was a flash in the cloud, and I said to myself, it's all in God's hand. And I figured years later something would come, happen, and just like genetic mutation, like I have a daughter, she has 14 operations. She's got the same symptoms I have, like heat is coming from my side, but heat feel like it's coming from my back all the time.
Yes, tell us a little bit about how it's affected you and your daughter, what you feel.
Well, I have 4. See, I have like a degenerative spine. I don't know if that's from that. And like my daughter, they took all the female reproductive organs out, all this. They took everything except for a liver and a kidney. I guess she's got a splint between a liver and the bile duct because what's causing the pressure and the pain. And you can't tell she can't tell the doctor my father was around nuclear equipment testing because of they just laugh at it. Nobody knew anything about it. Just like me, nobody admits. I think because of my age, and nobody want to sign off on me. But I used to wear a radioactive detector, and they should. I have a serial number. I gave it to them. They should be able to find how many rads I received.
Absorbed.
Yeah.
Have you had X-rays? Can you have X-rays?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
not a problem.
But what happened when they gave me the radioactive iodine, which they never checked my blood, that's when I lost all my hair, eyebrows. It was all, what I'm figuring is it was already in my blood. I lost all my hair. See that skin, the top of my hair. And nobody back in those days, the 50s, were prepared for, otherwise we just like guinea pigs,
Did they document any of the service in your military records?
Oh no, I just have, they say I never was there on this.
It was a top secret then?
Yeah, they told me that when I got here and I put in for conversation, they told me, he says, you went classified stuff, and you're not supposed to talk about it, this and that. So I said to him, well, I don't care anymore. I said, my whole family screwed up. I almost died from thyroid problem. I said, what can they do? Put me in jail the rest of my life? I really don't care.
And how old was your daughter when she started having problems?
Well, after she had her 2 kids, about 30 years old. But my son, he had his liver enzymes were high. They had to give him what you call it, the scope, like to check his liver out and
Biopsy?
yeah, biopsy. And one of my other daughters, she had like pains in the spine all the time. And I'm just trying to tell them. I said, gee, if I was in, it's almost 6 months, and that's the equivalent of being in a microwave oven.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody seemed to care.
And so you had the 3 children, and you feel all 3 of them have
Four, yeah.
all of your children
yeah.
you think have had a problem?
Well, I think it's what it's called a genetic mutation.
Right.
Because all of us, the RNA and DNA, come positive,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm thinking, yeah, this could have affected them. I'm just lucky I'm still alive.
Sounds like it.
Are there others that you serve with that are still alive that can back up your...
See, that's what, I went up to the DAV, and this guy was from New York, and he said, well, he laughed, well, you still alive, everybody else is dead. So I'm pretty sure, because the warrant officer, he was retirement age, and they put him out there. He was the highest ranking man out there, the chief warrant officer.
Now, you said after this they sent all of you to different
Look, they sent me
duty
to Korea.
installations.
They sent me to Korea.
So you recovered enough from that to be well enough to
I don't know if I was
continue?
well enough. It seemed like they were.
They just sent you go where the orders send you.
No, it seemed like they were trying to see how much cold I could stand. They sent me to Korea, and then I guess when the Chinese started up, they wanted to take Formosa, and then by 3 o'clock in the morning, they woke me up and said, "Oh, you're going to Formosa." And from the cold of Korea to the heat of Formosa, they sent me.
What kind of duty did you do in Korea?
Refueling and aircraft refueling, and train. I did some train guard, equipment tech from a place called Pyongyang Tech to Incheon, and a perimeter guard around the base to keep infiltrators out, from.
Was there a lot of activity going on on the communist side?
At nighttime they would start, and you didn't know who to trust. Like on the train, they'd steal everything. That's why they had to say train guard. But then I went down when the Chinese were going to take nationalists, they call them then. They were going to take, the Chinese Reds were going to take the nationalists from Chiang Kai-shek, in Formosa. That's when they sent a squadron of F-86Fs from Korea over to Tainan, Formosa.
Now, while you were in Korea, how were your relationship with the other men and officers in the unit?
Well, just like I said, everything was a little tense. It was still, people still had that prejudice, and so, yeah, you didn't know who to trust. You didn't know whether the guy would do something to you or not, and you just had a kind of feeling, because they just lumped everybody in from different environments together, and just like I say, a lot of the Southerners were still hostile,
How long was your tour in Korea?
Well, I I don't know, it's 5 or 6 months or maybe or more. And then I was supposed to Formosa for 120 days. I was supposed to went there for 60 days. And wound up 120 days, and I came back and stayed in Korea maybe another month. And then I was shipped back to the States.
Now you're covering some very important points in our history here. There are a lot of people that know about the atomic testing. They may have heard about it, but didn't think too much of it. And there are a lot of people who didn't know about the big communist threat against Formosa. Tell us what the feeling was like on Formosa.
Oh, it was tense. They used to send up, well, we had 4 planes on alert, and the Chinese had 4 planes, F-84s on alert, and they would have to patrol between what they call the Formosa Straits.
Now you say the Chinese, these were the Chinese nationalists.
Chinese nationals, yeah, were with us. But the Chinese communists, they took the island called Hainan. And only place Chiang Kai-shek had to go was Formosa. And when he was pushed off the Chinese mainland. So he took all his troops there, and then the Chinese had threatened to take Formosa, and that's when the United States sent a squadron out of Korea and to Formosa. I had to try. I don't know what they could have stopped them or not, but they sent a squadron out of there, and that was a special mission, just like Formosa was a special mission. They don't even have any records of me going to Formosa.
Now, did they do any medical follow-ups on you when you went to Korea or Formosa?
No, Formosa, they had a tent, and a guy, he'd fill out a little, and then he'd throw it in the trash. He was a 3-stripe or 2-stripe, a medic. We had no doctors. Just a guy that was a medic in the service, or you need an aspirin or APC or something, GI Gin, we call it then, they give you that, but other than...
There was a name they gave to the APC for those who weren't in the service and will be viewing this tape later on. That was a solves everything pill. They called it the all-purpose capsule.
Yeah, that's what they gave, APC, and they didn't send any medical records with me when I went to Formosa. And it's like I say, we just had a tent, and I don't even know if they had medical records on me in Korea.
So you must have felt well enough then to stay in the service and do your job?
Well, yeah, I used to have kind of nosebleeds, but then I received some paperwork from an outfit called, what was it? Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and they said this nuclear thing sometimes hits you 50 years later, just like the Korean conflict, with post-traumatic stress. And I never was any follow-up on me. And when I was in the Air Force Reserve, and I was called back in 1956 to active. I think 56 somewhere, 66, back to active duty at Stewart, Newburgh, 904 Troop Carrier Wing. But as far as when I got out of service in McGuire, they gave me, they said, if anything happened to you, go to the nearest VA hospital. But I didn't know the time then, so when I got out of service, I went to electronics school in Boston, called Electrical and Electronic. And next thing I know, they came over, it was from Raytheon Electronics. And it was a classified top secret government job. They needed 2 guys to check the microwaves and the magnetrons out after the people would assemble them at night. So it was another guy, he was on a Navy sub hunter, and he was a radar man. So they asked us to come over. We already had secret clearance. And it seemed like it was a set up deal, because I said, now here I go again. They put me in the magnetrons and microwave. It's Raytheon, and all the equipment had U.S. Air Force on it. So it was just like, I said, gee, maybe they were trying to, kill me. It was like, because when I got out at Seymour Johnson in North Carolina, the recruiting officer, I said, I'm not going back in service anymore. And he come down and said, oh, we opened up a new outfit, the 551st ACWRON outfit. It was a radar outfit, high frequency radar. And he says, oh, why don't you come on with? Okay. So I re-enlisted and went to Otis and Mass. And they had signs, don't walk out when the radar is operating. It seemed like they knew I had this stuff in my body, and they were just trying to see how much I could absorb. That's what it seemed like to me. Because you said follow-up. I think that was a follow-up. When I got out at Seymour Johnson in North Carolina, right away, recruiter came to was looking for me. He didn't know where, my mother told him where I was, And then all of a sudden they said, oh, we have an outfit for you. It was a radar outfit. And that's what made me feel suspicious, because I was there at Otis 4 years, and at that time they were sending all the planes out for what they call a SHAD Project 112. It was a special paint they would spray on the aircraft to keep the airframe from warping it from the heat from nuclear explosion. And so I didn't know this stuff was toxic, and then a couple of years ago it come on the news that a lot of the kids on that base, in that Cape Cod down there, not on the base, around the area, received, they had birth defects. Because I remember they used to have a civilian crew, rubber wetsuits. They used to wash the planes when they came back off of a mission. They had that toxic, I guess it was toxic paint, because they sent them to the Utah to get painted. And so I was there 4 years, and then all of a sudden they sent me to 32nd Fighter Interceptor Squadron in Holland. And it was the same planes that we had at Seymour Johnson in North Carolina. They sent Holland, but when they seemed to pick, when I had to go to refueling, the plane was coming back off alert, they were sending me. And I said, why would they always send me to the alert hangar? Then it dawned on me, why are they sending me? When I got to Holland, I noticed it was the same planes with that spray, and I don't know whether they were trying to see how much I could withstand or what, but I got sick there in Holland, and I had chills and colds, as the doctor said to me. He said, we got a message from the state to keep watch over you. Said, did you see something? I said, yeah, nuclear testing. And he said, well, you're going to get real sick, he said, but not right now. And so I didn't think so. They sent my blood work. I went to the dispensary, and that guy said, something wrong with your blood. We got to send it back to the States. They sent it to the environmental lab in Kelly Air Force Base in Texas. The Dutch doctors, they had put down in what was wrong with it in Dutch writing, but the Air Force put their cover head over it, and I think they predated or they changed the date on it. Because I didn't get to Holland until 63, but it was 62 when they come back that they put everything was okay, but it's still on. I have the papers now that what the Dutch doctors and analysts say was wrong with my blood. So I didn't know, and then I asked the guy to spin. Oh, it's all right, but that's the only follow-up I really had was that when this doctor asked me, he said, "You're gonna get real sick," and so I came back, and that's when I got out. I worked in the electrical union 25 years, and all of a sudden my nose was bleed when I was up on the like 7 World Trade Center. We did that, and I would start like gagging and carrying on, nosebleeds, and so. Then I got real sick, and I went to a civilian doctor, and I told him what happened. He said, "Well, they knew all the time." He said, "I know a doctor up in the VA that could take care of you." His name was Sherman Gates. He's dead now. These those pictures are on the 5th floor there in endocrinology. And he told me, he says, when you come here, just ask for me. You don't have to have no appointment. He said, "You're in bad shape." And at that time, I didn't know my whole system was screwed up with thyroid. And he told me, I said, "Well, we don't have a Geiger counter, but," he says, "but I figured if I operate, I might cut a nerve or something." He said, "Well, we use radioactive iodine." He said, and then I was just sick, and he told my daughter if I hadn't gotten me there 2 days later, I'd been dead from the thyroid problem. See, back then in the 50s when they were doing that testing, they had no the tablet. They got iodine tablet you take now for thyroid. They didn't have that back in then. And it was just a lot of, I guess, what would happen to you, this or that, because both of my legs are what they call varus deformity, crooked, and they develop, like my cartilages was all gone, and both of them, I don't know whether that had something to do with it or not, but.
So it sounds like you've given us a great contribution, that you were like a guinea pig, and the medical people have learned a lot about radiation from you.
Yeah, well, I think they're amazed I'm still living.
Sounds like.
Now, do they have you on special medications and special diets now?
No, I just take thyroid tablet and 1,000 cc's of B12 because my small intestines don't produce B12. I guess without the B12, I would die probably, because it's just like it destroyed my small intestines, just like in a way, because they don't.
When you finished your duty in Massachusetts and Holland, did you just get a discharge because your enlistment ran out, or
my enlistment ran? I didn't want to. We had just come back from the Netherlands, and I had no intention of going back. So it was 12 of us at the McGuire Air Force Base, and the FBI. The interviewer asked me that I wanted to come in the FBI because I had classified secret clearance, and I told him no, I didn't want any part of that. And I got discharged, and I went, just like I said, up to the VA at the JFK Center in Boston, and they took this letter they gave me. If anything happened to you, go to the nearest VA. That's what I did. You know. So I didn't know anything was really wrong. Like my nose, when I worked for a radion, my nose used to bleed every day by 12 o'clock.
Now, how did you ever get to be able to use the VA facilities, disability ratings, and whatever, if they didn't keep any records or so? How did they determine this?
I had orders, but I had orders when I was in Korea, I had orders when I was in the desert, in the testing, and what they did, they gave me 60%, they say, was service connected, and the other 40% they didn't say, they say 100% unemployability. But I had my orders, and they said, oh no, you wasn't near the test site. I even give them a map of, it came out of the, not the Atlas, but it was the other magazine. They asked them to start printing the map of the nuclear test site, not Spirit and Ram, but one of them, and I took a map out of that and took Xeroxed it and gave it to the examiner. And I was telling him I was showing him what happened to him. At this time I had braces on my legs, and he told me, I don't believe it. How many tests did you see? Where were you at? And so I had all of this. I keep double copies of everything. And he just took it all up and said, I'm going to send all this back to New York, he said. And he didn't give me any back, but I had, copies. And then the next thing I know, I came up to the VA, and they said, oh, the DAV, and the person over to the VA says, oh, he's here. Did you type up the papers on? They gave me type up the papers and told me get an ID card and put in for Champ VA for my wife medical.
Now, do you feel that you're getting treatment that's just, that fair, and that they're doing things to help you out?
I just wish someone knew more about the effects of nuclear. But I haven't had anybody that know anything about nuclear radiation or any contact of any. Like I appeal, I get 100% unemployability, but I want them to state that I was in harm's way.
And they still have not honored that debt.
It's been appealed to Board of Appeal in Washington. So they said it takes 3 years. So I went through this this new agency here. I guess the Justice Department handled it, and they sent me back a letter, said they look and see if they can find my radioactive detector that would tell how many rads I received. But they said it might be destroyed. A lot of them, they were destroyed. So I know when I left the 750 ACWRON, everybody, radioactive detector was gathered. They took everybody and said, we got to have all these. I don't know where they sent them to Las Vegas or Washington, D.C. See, at that time, the Atomic Energy Commission had took over the testing.
Have you ever tried to obtain records from the National Military Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri?
Oh, they send some. That's where I guess. Well, then the VA sent them up, but I think they might have sent some things by mistake because, like this blood work. Let me see. They sent from the Dutch doctors. They had covered over. I'm pretty sure they didn't want to send that, but they sent it anyway.
Well, they have just instituted a new program there where anyone who is in the service, their next of kin or their dependents, can obtain records of the complete records of your service.
Well, they sent I got my medical record. Yeah, I got.
Yeah.
Okay, you have your medical records and you have a statement that show bases that you served at.
Right,
And the dates
right.
and times.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. It seemed like nobody want to handle it.
They're afraid, probably.
Yeah.
They're afraid to admit their responsibility, it
Well,
seems like.
nobody want to. Yeah, they admit they made a mistake.
And you haven't heard about any of the other people you served with?
No, this.
How they were
They said-
affected?
The man, well, at the DAV office, the man was from New York City, and he said that, oh, we have to re-adjudicate your claim, he said. And that's when President, what's his name, not Carter, but President Clinton was
maybe.
in. So they had to re-adjudicate my claim, but they still didn't admit that I was exposed to nuclear radiation ionization. That's all I wanted to do. I said I didn't want any, extra compensation or anything. I just want to, so if I die, my kids will know what happened to me. What did I die from,
Will they get any benefits because of what you were
I
exposed
think
to?
they're over 18. I don't think they'll do anything for them.
Since you finished with the military, what did you do from then up until now?
I was in the electrical union, local 215 and 363 International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And I worked down the local 3 in New York City on the 7 World Trade Center, electrician and computer work and telephone work.
Did you find any of your employers were uneasy having you there because of radiation exposure?
Well, they didn't know anything about it. They didn't know anything about it, but see us.
There was nothing to really back you up that
Or didn't show up?
that it,
No.
When-
Only when I went down to work on 50 stories up, I started coughing a lot and nosebleed. And then I noticed in some of the material I got that said you could get nasal problems from nuclear and all that, cancer of the brain, colon, liver. But see, and then there was another paper came out that doing out in the desert, the dust kicking up and stuff, you could have breathed back. Now I'm pretty sure that we inhale a lot of it. But I know I was sick there for 3 months, and nobody. Then I guess when I was lost my equilibrium and falling, they figured they better send me over to the hospital,
how would you rate your care at the VA?
Man,
Do you think they're sympathetic to you, that they're doing everything that they should be doing?
Well, mostly when I had to go to a civilian doctor and for all the tests and all the paperwork and to admit that what happened. See, the VA doctors, I don't know if they've changed. They just go so far, and that's it. They don't admit. But I had to go to outside doctor about my skin, and they wrote the VA a letter about my alopecia totalis, no hair. And
When did all that start showing up?
1995.
Oh.
1995 when I was given, I think, a massive dose of radioactive iodine to kill the thyroid.
That's been
But-
a side effect.
They never checked. I've never been checked. I don't know. It seemed like when I was in Holland, they knew. They just, at that time, they sent them. They didn't have fax. Then I guess it was radio telephone. they sent a message over to the Netherlands in Holland, Soustberg, to keep watch over me and I think another guy that we had been out in the nuclear test area that we were going to get sick. I didn't know my nose was bleeding over there all the time. They said, oh, just
Dry air or something.
yeah, dry air. Yeah.
You didn't have any special quarters while they were watching over you.
No.
You were in a regular barracks setting.
Oh, my wife and kids were there.
Uh-huh. You lived independent housing then.
Oh, well, it wasn't. It was civilian Dutch. We didn't have houses there. And no, I was in the special. We didn't even have. We just had a dispensary there. We had to go to a Dutch Army hospital if anything was serious.
So you haven't really started glowing yet.
I don't know. I just thank
You're
God.
waiting for that to
I
happen.
know. I'm just thank God. I know it's a God. I'm still alive.
Yes, it sounds
Because
like
I
it
was-
is something.
Well, how is the feeling in your family? Is there a resentment to you or
Yeah, my
to
wife.
the government?
My wife, she gets on me all the time. Why didn't you tell me this? I said, I didn't know, before you had kids because of, I said, I didn't know I had classified. I wasn't supposed to talk about it. It was 50 years before I said anything about it. Because I didn't know, I didn't know what somebody might, the CIA or somebody might come shoot me or something, And there was a lot of fear. But my wife, I don't think she forgave me because she thanked me for the kids from, genetic mutation, which could happen. Nobody really knew.
They know a lot more today than back then.
Yeah. And my hair just didn't go away and skin just, just like that. Eyebrows and, my whole body, just like right now I'm sitting here, I feel like heat's coming out of my body.
Now, do you have a feeling that perhaps civilians that might have been out in that area even though they were far away, could be affected?
Oh, Utah. It was some sheep. The rancher had, they died from eating the grass from the fallout. And at that time, the Air Force said we didn't do anything wrong, but I think they paid the sheep herder for, the downwind, that stuff would travel. Just like we were right on the line, California at 750 ACWRON with Groom Lake. We were right on the Nevada line. It wasn't nothing but desert, but when those clouds come there, you see them drifting. A lot of time I'd run back into the radar site, this radar dome inside. I said maybe.
Now, were these ground detonations or were these dropped from an aircraft
Well,
or both?
Some was ground and some was this one was the air over here.
Mhm.
This is ground.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that your experience in the military affected your health. Did you have some good things that's helped you in your life, or how did it affect you in other ways in your life afterward?
Well, everything was all right until I didn't know what was wrong with me, but they diagnosed me as having post-traumatic stress, and I didn't know. I just, like most of the guys in the Korean War group, you just start drinking and you think it'll go away, and you got the same problem next day, and that's what I used to do, just hold it within and don't say anything to anybody about it, until I got the records from the regional office. And I started looking at my medical records about where I was sick, and the blood records they sent to environmental lab in Kelly Air Force Base, which is no more, I don't think. I think it's Lackland, in Texas. And then I started thinking if they send your records to an environmental lab, there's got to be something wrong with you. And that's what got me to thinking. I said, I'm lucky, I'm still around.
I'd say it's remarkable that you still have a somewhat positive attitude, that you have a family that supports you, and that there is a ray of hope that the government will admit to this testing, and that you will get the proper treatment and compensation that is due you.
Well, that's what I'm not going to give up. I think that's what they want. I just want them to admit, yes, I was there. But all other nuclear testing except this one teapot is not, you don't have anything about it. Everything else, not whole, and the rest of them, but you don't have to see anything about it.
So have you ever joined any of the military organizations like the VFW or
Oh,
anything?
no, I don't.
You're not a joiner.
Oh, no, that's, most of those places, I just, just socialize with drinking. I just come to my therapy, Korean War therapy group twice a week, and Elizabeth Donovan, she's my therapist, and she helped me, and Dr. Norzak, because
I guess you're fortunate that you were able to get some help through the Disabled American Veterans.
oh yeah, they're good. He's real Gibney. He's real good. He's the one that, when I went to the VA, they told me, oh, you in the classified stuff, you don't want to talk to us. Go and see the DAV. They pushed me over to them. And at that time, I was getting 20%. But what really got me before I went to the group was I came in one morning and I said, nobody want to help me. And I showed Gibler, I said, look at my skin and everything, and I was walking with a crutch. So I went to the group, and I told my wife, I said, I feel like committing suicide, And so from then on, Elizabeth Donovan, she grabbed me by the arm and said, well, we're going to see Dr. McGinn, and so that kind of straight, they gave me some medication and everything, Prozac and Respiron, and I couldn't sleep at night, and that was, I just don't want anybody else to, I don't know, go through,
But I'm sure you've saved a lot of people through your medical treatment. They've learned a lot, and that's a great contribution to your country.
Well, they don't really let you know what they're looking for, because
it's all top secret.
no,
Maybe they don't know.
2 years ago, they sent me a letter from the regional office, presumption, 6 new presumptions. One was cancer, the brain, the bone, liver, and all that. And so they made an appointment right here for me. They gave me an MRI. They x-rayed all around here. They didn't tell me what they were looking for, but I know what they were looking for.
Well, we thank you very much for telling us your story, and we wish you a great deal of good health and happiness in the future. Who knows, they may find a cure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You want to take a picture of this?
Sure.
This is a F-86 Korea, F-86F.
Oh, thank you.
Well, maybe I won't go to jail for telling you that.
As you said, what can they do to you?
I've been through enough already, so I figure.
What else can be worse?
Yeah, see, this is the Justice Department's supposed to be taking over, and that's where they're looking for me at Fort Belvoir, Virginia.
not off. You turn the camera
No.
off.